The Cleveland Browns have a chance to make a lot of noise with 5 picks in the top 103. So instead of just debating about quarterbacks, let's talk about those first 5 selections in the top 103. Browns 3D starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR, brought to you by State Sharpening Motor Sales and Service. Anybody getting tired yet of the quarterback talk? Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, free agents. He stinks. He's not good. He's sort of good. Maybe one day he can be good. I get it. And, with each and every day, we get another top draft writer that puts out a mock draft and labels and puts so-and-so player to the Browns, and that debates for 24 hours. And then we get another writer puts out maybe their big board. Lance Zerline, Lance, great friend, love Lance, just put out his, and I do believe it was Cam Ward at 24 overall and Shedeur Sanders at 58 overall. That's certainly going around right now. And it's always fun when people will stick to one certain draft writer's words, big board, mock draft, when it certainly fits their narrative. That is also one of my favorites. Regardless, the Cleveland Browns have 5 selections in the top 103 of the 2025 NFL draft and have an absolute chance to put together a monster haul for this team. Certain things will tell us whether or not that could be what is a key part of a good team in 2025. Myles Garrett, Joel Bitonio, also, how it's going to work out, whether a guy like Nick Chubb comes back. All of these things certainly factor into it. Now, the Browns holds picks 2, 33, 67, 94, and 103 overall. If you have any questions, any confusion, pick 94 overall was the compensation for the trade for Amari Cooper. Now, the biggest needs, obviously we understand the biggest needs for the Cleveland Browns right off the bat is certainly the quarterback situation. It needs an extremely strong move, a major player added. Now, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, the debate will continue that there probably just is not that absolute slam dunk answer that can be brought in and we can say the Cleveland Browns have their franchise quarterback for the next half of decade to a decade. There's just no answer to it. You look at other needs. Running back is a need. It could be a great need, still to be determined, obviously. That coincides extremely well for the Cleveland Browns and this draft class. This draft class is loaded. Daniel Jeremiah just put out a mock where he mocked 3 running backs in the top 32. Still, there would be a loaded group if those 3 guys did go in the top 32. Wide receiver is a position that I think a lot of people probably just don't have high enough on the totem pole for my liking in regards to the Browns. We know Jerry Jeudy came over here, and Jerry Jeudy basically achieved everything that Jerry Jeudy certainly thought he was capable of in his time in Denver, but did not achieve. After that, keeping in mind Elijah Moore is a free agent, you do not have a wide receiver on this roster with over 30 receptions in a season. That's just fact. Wide receiver is a great need. Unfortunately, the draft, and people want to say it's top heavy, and maybe that's true. I'm not sure. I don't know if I just see absolute game breakers. You think last year about the wide receiver position, McConkey, Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., what these guys all did. I don't know if there's a receiver here that you say is going to go out and give you what Malik Neighbors did as a rookie or Brian Thomas Jr. did as a rookie. And keeping in mind and factoring in, Brian Thomas Jr. didn't do it with his number 1 quarterback for basically, I think it was the last month of the season. Did it with Mac Jones. Malik Neighbors never had a quarterback in 2024 and still put together a miraculous season. Tight end, definitely a need. Definitely want to get younger. Definitely need some David Njoku insurance. And by all means, this class can help. And I've said this for the past 2 drafts. I really wanted the Browns to show some activity in the tight end market in the draft. There's been some talented pass catchers, and it's a position that's really coming overall on the rise in the NFL over the last few years. But Browns have not gone that way. And, sometimes, nobody's perfect. And I know I get accused of being an Andrew Berry homer and Kevin Stefanski homer. But, there are moves that I would have jumped into in the last couple of drafts. I know a lot of people did not like last year's running back class. I did. I liked it for the value it had. And there were certainly running backs available last year on day 3 that, were able and did show out and perform in the NFL in 2024. Bucky Irving, prime example. Browns chose not to navigate into those waters. It happens. But, that's kind of where you're at now. I think they were so caught up in being kind of all in that, even if you spend a selection on a guy who maybe didn't help you right away, could have been a guy that could have been, a big piece down the stretch. Bucky Irving was not playing a ton in the beginning of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They finally started, mixing him in, and he became so dominant that, whatever deficiencies or concerns they had with him, they just threw him out the window because when they handed him the ball, he was producing yards. Kudos to Tampa Bay for that, obviously. Offensive line, the Joel Bitonio question is going to be huge. There's no question about it. Does Joel want to come back? Because if Joel doesn't, yes, right away, Zach Zinter goes in, becomes your starter, right? Is that what everybody thinks? Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it too. But, you're going to need some insurance there. And free agency offers some options. The offensive line class, it may not start very high in this draft. But like a lot of people feel about this draft is like, from pick 15 to about 60, there is just an abundance of great, great talent that certainly can be had there. Defensive line, the Myles Garrett, can they talk him out, off the cliff? I don't know. He's really, really, really dragged this pretty far. And, I know from, the few things I hear from the building in Berea, they did not appreciate Super Bowl week. They did not appreciate it whatsoever. Basically he was out there like it was a free agent tour. They did not appreciate that. But Myles is a great player. It's a lot easier for the Browns to lick their wounds there than maybe it's going to be for Myles Garrett to lick his wounds and, decide that maybe ultimately he does want to remain. Doesn't hold much power here, if any, but it doesn't change the stance that he still would maybe like to find an opportunity somewhere else. You're going to look certainly in free agency because, if you're losing Myles, you're adding 2. You're going to need a veteran pass rusher because all of a sudden that room is young and green. If Myles is no longer here, you're certainly going to draft one. And good news for the Browns, this defensive line class is loaded on the outside and on the inside. It should be a fixture of what their offseason plans are regardless. Linebacker, yet another huge major question lingers over this positional group, and that is the health of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I spoke about this the other day, and I mentioned it, and I'll mention it again. Our own, Lane Atkins here at the OBR basically has said that, JOK is basically living his normal life. The only problem is there doesn't seem to be much sign of any football activity. I'm sure that is by design, but we don't know if there's going to be a time where basically he's going to be green-lighted into resuming football activities. You get to the secondary, Denzel, has been everything that you hoped for when he was drafted number 4 overall back in 2018. He's walked in, he locked down cornerback 1 for this team. He's been a mainstay. Yes, he gets injured every now and then, a little bit of a smaller player, but when Denzel Ward is on that field, he is a true dominant number 1 corner. Corners 2 and 3, certainly a sticky situation where you have Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson both going into contract years. Neither player played as well in 2024 as they did in 2023. Both players would like to hear that there's contract extensions coming their way. I don't think the Browns are entertaining extending either one of them right now. And I would probably say rightfully so. The Browns will draft a corner this year. They draft a corner every year. So probably, something that they are going to continue to do. You have, a guy going in his third year. You have a guy going in his second year. Third, second. I mean, there are plenty of backup corners on this team. Safety position, you have one proven commodity in Grant Delpit. Grant is, really, really been a guy after such a rocky start to his career, really, really rebounded well after the Achilles injury. But with these five selections in the top 103, and this is the part that gets me giddy. I don't care about 3 and 14, any of these other things. 5 picks in the top 100 can be something that alters a franchise, and the Browns certainly have that opportunity to do this. We're going to get back, talk about players who are options at those selections. Appreciate everybody for sticking around here. I'm excited to introduce everybody to State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights. If you are local to the Cleveland area, they are your one-stop shop for all things lawn equipment. Is there anything worse than missing the Browns game because you've got lawn chores to do? State has the best lineup of new Cub Cadet mowers to cut your mowing time down, as well as genuine parts and expert factory-trained technicians to get your existing mower back into peak shape. Whether you're in the market for the state-of-the-art ultimate zero-turn or the top dog Enduro Series tractor, let State Sharpening and Cub Cadet help you keep your weekend yours. Veteran-owned. The Kane family are lifetime Clevelanders. They are lifetime Browns fans, and they are huge supporters of us over here at the OBR. Again, if you are local to Cleveland, State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights is your hometown team for all your lawn equipment needs. All their info is at statesharp.com. That is STATESHARP.com. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Browns 3D. As always, we appreciate all of you coming out every day. We're trying to put together this fantastic nightly content lineup for you all. Make sure you subscribe to OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to OBR on Twitch. Make sure you are checking out the fantastic written content putting out by all our writers daily. We appreciate you all. Now, with the with the 5 picks in the top 103, and look, there is free agency. The Browns will create cap money. They'll probably dabble in trades. It's just what Andrew Berry does. But this is the year, no question about it, where you absolutely have to put it all together if you're Andrew Berry. It's great to win the offseason. It's great to put together what you think is going to be an extremely capable, competing type of roster year in and year out. But the proof is in the pudding. And for the Browns, who have gone to 2 playoffs in 5 seasons with this regime, 2 out of 6, bad news. 3 out of 6 looks better. But this team needs to get younger. Some of the stars who were part of this team being successful in 2020, some of them aren't here. Some of the stars that were part of this team being successful in 2023 are declining, are on the wrong side of the prime of their career. Who's a realistic contender for the Cleveland Browns at number 2? I know everybody is going to talk Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and rightfully so, but we have done that to death. Let's just float a couple other names here. Say the Browns do sign a premier quarterback in free agency. And I don't know if the premier guy is out there, but if you wanted to say you signed Sam Darnold and you did not want to go Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, that is certainly possible for the Cleveland Browns, and take one of the younger guys later. Travis Hunter, interesting guy, right? Everyone fell in love with Travis Hunter this year. I think everybody was amazed by a full-time, both sides of the ball, dual threat player. The fact that he was able to do that amazes me. I was there when guys were just dabbling. Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey in college with that type of thing. To think that somebody actually went out and did it for an entire collegiate season blows your mind. But as I said before, if you look at Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, 6 foot, 185, maybe on a good day, 190 pounds. Is he that guy that is going to get you 100 receptions? Jerry Jeudy had 90 last year. That means Hunter would have to be better than that to go 2 overall as a wide receiver. Cornerback wise, Is he one of the greatest cornerback prospects that ever lived? Because if he's not, what are you doing? Why are you drafting him at 2? I think the problem I have with Travis Hunter is if I don't know exactly which side of the ball I want him to play on yet, I think that talks myself into the fact that he's not worthy of the number 2 selection overall. If I knew what he was going to play and how well he would play it, I'd already be locked in that Travis Hunter is worthy of the number 2 selection. Abdul Carter. And, I know a lot of people are, all over the place on, well, he's too small. He's really a linebacker, Well, the 2 guys who played the position that Abdul Carter just played this year for Penn State, I believe were top 5 in pass rush win percentage. There was a very significant pass rush stat that these 2 guys were top 5 in the NFL last year. Certainly something to consider. Abdul Carter, the athletic ability on tape is off the charts. I'm assuming he will destroy the combine. We're going to want to know, is he a legit 6'3"? Is he a legit north of 250 pounds? Those things get confirmed. Abdul Carter, and I agree with many, where they believe that Abdul Carter is the best overall player in this draft. I agree. I am firm believer of that. Is a Mason Graham possibly a guy you could take at number 2 overall? Yes. Freak on tape. No question about it. Absolute freak on tape. But number 2 overall, I just don't see it. I think New England at 4 is a beautiful, beautiful spot for Mason Graham. Will Campbell, a lot of people are going to bring up, the lack of arm length, and understandably and rightfully so. The Browns could address getting a swing tackle in free agency, which makes you feel certainly better, with hopefully giving the opportunity for DeJuan Jones to solidify left tackle. And even if he's just a decent left tackle, when Jack's time is done on the right side, you just put DeJuan back over on the right side and then go find your left tackle then. The Browns don't necessarily need to save money, but it certainly wouldn't hurt to. So say Jack Conklin plays another 2 years. Say DeJuan Jones is your left tackle for the next 2 years. It's giving you money to satisfy contracts that most likely will have to be extended somewhere along the line here over the next couple of years for guys that are with this team, or more money to dabble in free agent market. Sounds like good business to me. I just don't know where between pick 2, pick 33, you're just going to get a guy who's going to come in right away and just solidify your left tackle spot. Does Josh Simmons fall that far? Does Jackson from Ohio State? Did he prove enough where if you get him at 33, you have a left tackle? Well, certainly interesting conversations, to have, no doubt about it. And then you kind of go on further down. But for me right now, number 2 overall is Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, or Cam Ward. If it is not one of those 3 names, if they trade, and oh my God, please don't trade the pick, because I can't imagine what this fan base is going to go through if the Cleveland Browns trade that pick. Now, when we get to 33, now this is kind of where it gets interesting. For me, right off the bat, I have to think this could be your running back spot. The question's going to be, do teams fall in love with a couple of these running backs and just say, that's my guy, I absolutely have to have this guy? Or are you going to say, this is a great class, and especially the Browns, who I think will double dip in the running back class in this draft? Do they play the patient approach? But this is your sweet spot. We all feel Austin Genty is going to go round 1, and certainly rightfully so. But when you get to this spot here, and who knows, maybe Daniel Jeremiah was on to something today with having Travion Henderson in a round 1 of a mock, with a Marion Hampton with round 1 in a mock. You want to look for a second team, and Daniel Jeremiah didn't give a running back to either of these teams. I am telling you right now, if I am the Washington Commanders, I am trying to solidify whatever, minor holes I think I have in free agency. So I'm the Washington Commanders. I absolutely want to draft one of these running backs, and most likely do it in the first round. If there's one thing that's going to open up Jaden Daniels even more, it's going to be having somebody that is a serious threat to the defense as a running back. truly, honestly believe it. So here, I think for the Browns, is definitely the sweet spot. Caleb Johnson, of course, Travion Henderson, Amarian Hampton. You would be giving life to your running back room for 2025, where we know Jerome Ford is a part of that room. We're not sure where it stands with Nick Chubb. Pierre Strong's on the roster. But again, you're going to double dip on down the road. So now you get into that 67 range. What is viable for the Browns in that range? Now, this is probably where, I'm thinking probably because that tight end run, it's going to go Loveland and Warren in the first round, or Warren Loveland. I'm not trying to put one over the other. My personal preference, I think, is Tyler Warren. But you got to keep in mind, Loveland is also younger. The Mason Taylors of the world, certainly. Elijah Arroyo, and I know a lot of people are doing these mocks with Elijah Arroyo at 103. Tight ends who run 4.5 at almost 6'5" at almost 250 pounds are not going to get drafted at 103, guys. I don't even think 94 is an option. I think 67 would be the sweet spot where you're looking for that tight end. Now, what else am I looking for, right? What else am I looking for? I want to be able to bring in a corner somewhere. That's probably something I can save for day 3. But now you get into this range, and now we're getting to, late third round in the 90s. What are we looking for there? Certainly there would be tight ends, but you're out of that, the sweet spot of the tight end group. Certainly some interesting wide receivers. Jack Beck, TCU, if you remember, had a phenomenal Senior Bowl game, caught the game-winning touchdown pass after, of course, the difficulty in his personal life. His younger brother, being unfortunately a part of the attacks on New Year's Eve down in New Orleans and lost his life. But 6'2", pro build, 210, 215, can go over the middle. I think the Cleveland Browns really, really need to consider, better sized wide receiver. Just in general, Jerry Jeudy has shown that ability. And not saying that Jerry Jeudy is a top, physically in stature type of wide receiver, but you saw how they found a way for Tillman. You certainly saw how that worked for them and something that they think they're going to feed off of. And I'm certainly promising in my regards to Tillman as far as 2025 is concerned. Certainly a guy that can be a huge, huge part of that. Now, I'm getting to, that 103 selection. And, a fun player who's played a little bit of everywhere as far as a secondary player has been Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. Played well at the Senior Bowl. He's got crazy range, really does. And, the Browns certainly can, spend money on a free safety if they do not continue their time with Juan Thornhill. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. I mean, there's people who, want to understand that Juan Thornhill hasn't been in the best of health his 2 years here with Cleveland. And I guess that's a fair point. It is. But, if he's had the issues with the calf and it's, limited his acceleration and it limited his play speed, all of those things, which certainly are justifiable and understandable. But if it's been 2 years and lower leg injuries were kind of an issue with him in his time in Kansas City anyway. So if that's the case and I can just get out of the deal, then I'm just going to get out of the deal. And I will, look to bring somebody in, veteran-wise. There will be safeties available, some quality names. That's certainly, available. Andre Sisco from Jacksonville, a name that it was a guy I was enamored with when he was coming out of Syracuse. Certainly something the Browns can do, with their free agent money if they choose to do that. So basically what you're looking for here, in my opinion, of what these top 5 top selections in the top 103, you're probably looking somewhere along the line. It's going to be a quarterback. There's going to be a defensive end in there. There's going to be a tight end in there. There is going to be a running back in there, and there is most likely going to be a secondary player in there. All deep positional groups except for quarterback, which is probably why everybody is pushing for the quarterback to be addressed at number 2 overall, which I completely understand. And I do. Look, even if it was the biggest of brand names that was available, say, that, Manning was there in this year's draft, it's still Browns fans would scare the death out of you. And I get it. It's just you've been down the road too many times. You've had it blow up in your face too many times. I 100% get it all the way. I truly do. So definitely, no question about it. If the Browns get the guy you want, or the Browns go another route from the way you wanted, we're all going to sit around and be scared to death regardless, because it's just not worked out in any way whatsoever. It was starting to work out in 2018, 2020, and 21. It unraveled. And it didn't even unravel, man. It just absolutely fell the hell apart. There's just no better way to describe it, obviously. And, then, Browns kind of lost their mind. Their quarterback at the time certainly, was not in his right place. And, so instead of, figuring out where they were, they went all the way rogue. And it basically just absolutely went about as piss poorly as any decision can make. And when you make decisions when you're in your feels, as opposed to using your mind and your clarity, it sometimes does not go the best for you. And obviously we all understand how it went that way. We have Combine next week. And again, I look forward to this, and, things I've learned over the years in doing this coverage, and as far as, how Combine works and draft and all of that stuff, there's always been a big phrase is, don't count it twice. If you believe somebody is fast and they go to the Combine and they run fast, there is no reason to get super excited. It is confirming the fact that the belief was that said player was fast. Some of the most important things that go on at the Combine have no exposure to any of us. We won't know till well after the player is drafted, maybe not even then. The meetings are crucial. Believe it or not, the way the players conduct themselves and handle themselves to the staff, to the medical people when they go to the hospital and get all their checkups, that is huge. People don't want you to come in and act like a superstar. They want you to be thankful for the opportunity you have. Some guys get passes. Every now and then there's a flare up that, could lead to an issue, or maybe was never an issue to begin with. But it's a huge part. And, things like this get frustrating at times with the Combine, is when guys go in there and, do some stupid things, or a guy fails a drug test, this, that, or whatever. I don't even know if they're checking that anymore. But you've had all this time in your life, and then, of course, the last 2 to 3 months to prepare for this major opportunity to basically give you a lottery ticket to life. And the guys go out there and compete with all their peers around. And for me, that's always what kind of makes it exciting. You need the quarterbacks to be on their A games, and it's going to be interesting because this is a small quarterback group. They need Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward to perform at the Combine. If these guys decide they're not going to perform, these quarterbacks are going to get a lot of throws, and certainly can be beneficial to some of them in improving their draft stock. But, not normally the way it works. Normally there's 7-8 quarterbacks per group. I think they have only 15 going. So that means if Sanders and Ward decide they're not going to work out at the Combine, and I'll be honest, the first group is definitely not the group you want to see. And the second group is what you want to see. And it's going to have Ward. It's going to have Sanders. First group could be Dart and McCord. So, it would go from everybody having all their eyes on the second group of quarterbacks to all of a sudden now everybody's going to watch the first group of quarterbacks, which certainly would not be so pleasant on the eyes, or certainly the viewership for the 2025 NFL Combine. We're just going to continue to rock it out here all week long. Later tonight, you will get Brad Ward and you will get Pete Smith for the React. Great job. The show does extremely, extremely well. I thank you all for putting up for Pete Smith for as long as you do on a Tuesday night. I kid. Not always kidding, though. So appreciate, again, everybody who's putting the time out, coming here and checking all this content we're putting out on the daily. Browns 3D, first episode you get every day at 6 o'clock. Another episode at 7. Another episode at 8 on most nights. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on Twitch as well. Want to thank our fantastic sponsors, State Sharpening, Mower Sales and Service, for going along on this ride with us. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.